Hello and welcome everybody, I am Brandon. And we got a buttload of Square Enix and Balan Wonderland news to talk about today. This one gets a little hairy. So, from the sounds of it, Yuji Naka, the director of Balan Wonderland, just recently got out of a court case with Square Enix regarding his removal as the director of the game. After the lawsuit was over, he posted this gigantic thread to Twitter, pretty much talking about what went on in the lawsuit and why it happened in the first place. That's right, we're talking about Square Enix again. They just cannot seem to keep out of trouble recently. Anyway, we got all that news and more on another episode of Game Corner. Thanks for joining me, everybody. If you like what I do, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more, and I'll stop wasting your time. So before we jump into the lawsuit, just a quick history if you guys don't know. Balan Wonderland is a Square Enix game that was directed by Yuji Naka, at least up until about the last 6 months of the game being released. It was announced back in 2020 as a long-awaited reunion of Yuji Naka and Naoto Oshima. Naoto Oshima is the creator of Sonic the Hedgehog and current head of co-developer Arzest. Balan was finally released in March of 2021 to catastrophic failure, if you guys remember, getting absolutely destroyed online by critics and fans alike. So like I said, in a very lengthy tweet over on Twitter, Naka went to post this gigantic thread about kind of what happened with the lawsuit, why he had started it in the first place, and kind of his feelings around Square Enix right now. He starts out by saying, "I think Square Enix is no good. They don't care about games or fans. According to court documents, I was removed as director from Balan Wonderland for 2 reasons. This decision was made by the producer, publicist, sound director, the head of the company board, and the human resources department." So as you can see, specifically calling out Square Enix and Arzest here, saying that they don't care about games, is some pretty strong language to use against your previous employer. Personally, I think it's a real shame that an unfinished Balan Wonderland has been sent out into the world. I wanted to release it properly, as a carefully made action game. I don't think that Square Enix or Arzest are companies that care about games or fans. As I said, this tweet thread is very long, so I will leave the whole thing in the description down below if you guys would like to read it yourself. Moving on though, it does sound like Yuji Naka is pretty furious at Square Enix and Arzest here. I do think he has pretty good reason to be, seeing as how a lot of people clearly were making decisions behind his back, and then removed him from his game entirely only 6 months out from release. Yuji Naka is an absolute legend too. He used to be the lead of Sonic Team, as well as being the mastermind behind Sonic the Hedgehog, as well as other games like Knights, Phantasy Star, and obviously Balan Wonderland. Shortly after all this went down, he decided to resign from his position at Square Enix and then filed this lawsuit. Apparently this got so out of hand for him, he actually even talked about just quitting game development altogether after this. Luckily, it does sound like he will actually be continuing to make games under his indie label Prope. We haven't heard anything from them as of recently, but I imagine we'll see something from him down the road. Anyway, in the tweet thread, Yuji Naka mentions the 2 reasons that they made this decision to fire him as the director of Balan Wonderland. The first one being when he spoke up about some promotional material that they were doing for the game. Apparently the producer decided to work with some YouTuber who would perform and release sheet music for a piano version of Balan's music, and Naka responds to this by being pretty confused about why they wouldn't just use the game's original soundtrack as is, saying one reason is that a pianist YouTuber is going to perform songs from the game and publish a sheet music arrangement as part of the game's promotion. I thought it strange that he would only release an arrangement of the game's music, and furthermore use a ghostwriter to produce that arrangement. I got into trouble for arguing that we release the original score. I don't think it's a good idea to only release arrangements of the game's music. I think there's game music that everyone knows and can hum, but I'm not sure that this is what you'd call the game's true music. For those that don't know, Balan Wonderland has a pretty strong connection to music. Obviously, if you remember the trailer for the game, it's very bombastic and loud, and there's this large score playing over the top of it. So obviously, as the director of the game, knowing that you have this soundtrack that contributes to the game's feel and mood, it might kind of piss you off a little bit to know that somebody's going behind your back to make a totally different arrangement of the music that you had intended for the game. Then, apparently, the second reason that they removed him from the director of the game was because there were tensions between him and co-developer Arzest on whether or not the game was unfinished and ready to be released. In the tweet, he says, "I believe that games should be made by working hard until the very end, until it's a good game that the team thinks their fans enjoy when they buy it. I think it's strange to remove and totally exclude a director who'd had input on the game, and to do so without discussion because there isn't time." Basically, from the sounds of it, Naka thinks that the game would have been a lot better upon release if he would have been still part of that creative input on the game, and if it would have been given more time to be finished. Well, I can't say for sure. I am curious if there was some tension between Naka and Oshima on this project. Obviously, Oshima is the lead over on Arzest, and it sounds like there was kind of some communication communication issues between Naka and the producer and Arzest here. And obviously we don't really have a lot of the backstory on what went on behind the scenes here, but I mean, I agree with Naka here. Removing the director of a game 6 months out before release and in an unfinished state like that obviously is gonna, not work out very well for you, Square Enix. I can't say for sure if the game would have been good if they were given that time, but it sure does make a pretty good argument that it could have been better at least. Now, Naka goes on to justify this lawsuit by saying, "I think it's strange to say that developers can't work until the last minute to make their game better. I asked my lawyer to help me negotiate the ability to simply make comments on the game until the end of development, but this was totally ignored, so I filed a lawsuit." Also, from the sounds of it, he apparently wasn't able to actually talk to anyone on social media. Apparently they told him that he wasn't allowed to like or retweet or engage with people on social media at all. By forbidding tweets, liking, etc. on social media, I think Square Enix is doing their fans a disservice. There were so many comments and fantastic illustrations of Balan Wonderland, and I'm really sorry that I couldn't do anything to recognize them. So from here on out, we've mostly covered all the big kind of talking points of this big tweet thread that Naka had put out. It mostly goes on to talk about his distrust between Square Enix and Arzest and kind of this broken relationship that they have. But for all 2 you Balan Wonderland fans out there, he does have a little bit to say to you. For my part, I'd like to offer my sincere apologies to these customers who bought the unfinished Balan Wonderland. Henceforth, I believe I'll be able to respond to mentions and tags as an individual. So it does sound like Naka is allowed to talk to people on social media again, so maybe reach out to him and, give him a little love. It sounds like he might need it. And I mean, regardless of who's at fault here, there clearly seems to be some mismanagement going on here, and I'd honestly really love to know more about what went on behind the scenes and why they kind of made these decisions against Naka's will here. And I mean, with how Square Enix has been running things lately, I would not be surprised that they were doing some shady stuff behind the director's back, probably thinking that this game was kind of dead on arrival, I would imagine. Sort of sounds to me like they had pretty low hopes of this game being a success, and they kind of wanted to rush it along its development and just get it over with. A lot of speculation here, unfortunately. We don't have the full story. We just recently got more of this information from Naka, and I thought we were kind of at a point now where we could share this stuff. It is sort of a he said, she said thing, but coming from Naka's point of view here, I could definitely see how, as the director of this game that you sort of have a lot of creative input on, you'd be kind of pissed off if other people took the reins on that and sort of threw you under the bus. That being said, I do think we should remember that Yuji Naka is sort of known for making hit or miss games here. He is an absolute legend, but I do sort of have a feeling that Balan Wonderland might have not been a success even if they were given those extra 6 months. Seems like it's got some deeper issues than it just being like a technical mess. It sounds like they have some really deep mechanical problems with that game. I don't mean to throw shade at the Sonic community here either, but there's been quite a few bad one of those, and I know that Yuji was behind quite a few of them. The story does not end there though. We actually got one more statement from Square Enix pretty much confirming this lawsuit, and where they said this about Balan Wonderland, and I quote, "It is a game we recommend with confidence." Really quick before we go, I had a little message from my buddy Graydon Webb over at VGU TV where he says, "Can you mention how contrary to Square's belief, Graydon says do not play Balan Wonderland?" Yes, Graydon, we can do that. Don't play Balan Wonderland. Anyway, what do you guys think about all this? Do you think Yuji Naka's in the right here? What about Square Enix? They've been up to some shit recently, haven't they? Personally, I'm kind of on the fence. I think Yuji Naka's sort of in the right here to at least get some information about why he got fired from his job. And we've obviously been covering a lot of Square Enix antics over on Game Corner recently. Everything from their interest in NFTs and the metaverse to them selling off Crystal Dynamics for chump change. Anyway, that's about all the Balan Wonderland news I got for you guys today. I'm Brandon. This was Game Corner. Thanks for watching, and have a kick-ass week.